I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Thank
It's
you.
on. It's on. I want to call the meeting to order. You like the way I yell? Mr. Secretary, roll call.
Marge,
Oh, I'm here.
Bart, here. Jim Garden, here. Nellie,
Here.
Candy,
Here.
Kathy,
Here.
Nancy,
Here.
Dave, Barbara,
Here.
Beth,
Here.
Bev, Joe. Joe's absent.
He's not here, but I think he'll be on Zoom soon.
Okay, we have a quorum. Scott
Here.
is here.
Okay, do we have any changes or amendments to the agenda? Yeah, I'll accept a motion to accept.
So move.
Jim moved to accept the agenda and Barbara seconded. Those in favor signify by raising a hand. It's unanimous. Okay, we'll do mine. We do these first. Okay, the president's report. We're winding down this year, and boy, it's been a wild one. We have done so many things this year. We've changed so many. We've renovated Canoa Hills. We've finished the fitness center at Desert Hills. We've had glass arts at Santa Rita Springs. We've approved money and well, maybe not approved all of it, but the artisans are going to get a bigger shop over here. We have changes that have gone through for the corporate policy manual, and we've had bylaw changes. So those are just a few of the things we've done this year as a board, and it's been exciting, and I would like to say it's been fun. Most of the time it's been fun. So I think you guys have done great. I think we've done a good job this year. And we have one more meeting, Scott?
Yep.
One more meeting, and then we move to the new board. And at that time, we only bring in 3 new members. So we start the process of moving the board down from 12 to 9. So this year, after the elections, we'll have 11 instead of 12. I want to thank all of the members that have written to me over the last several years and given me your opinion, your comments, your concerns. I hope I've answered you so that you knew at least I read it. I think the staff has done a really good job, and they usually respond pretty quickly and let you know what's happening honestly and truthfully. So that's something that's really nice to have here. So I thank you for that. I want to thank Scott and his staff for all their support. If it wasn't for he and his staff, this board would not function as well as we have or as poorly as we have. I mean, he's held us together, and he's spent a lot of time hanging on to us. So I want to thank you, Scott, and your staff. So that's my president's report. CEO's report.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. It's been a pleasure. It's what we do. We enjoy it. So the end of the governance year is upon us, but the construction season is just starting. So we have a lot of things coming up project-wise. I want to give you some updates. On the top of our list is the Artisan Shop. The board is being asked to approve this contract today. We've gone out for bids. The bids were submitted. They were reviewed. We're going to talk about it a little bit more today, and hopefully the board will consider actually approving the contract. I know there's some here from the Artisan Shop today. I'll be pulling up a slide to show you kind of a high level of what that project is going to look like. How long has it been coming for? I think it's 20 to 30 years that this has been talked about, the expansion of this project. So good to get that done. Similarly, the Lapidary expansion project also has been talked about for 30 years. We are up to about 30% design completion at this point. If you recall, the board approved a concept of moving forward with both the Artisan and the Lapidary as a project this year. Artisans is going to move forward sooner because it's a much simpler project. The lapidary expansion involves expanding exterior walls, not just taking down interior walls. So much bigger project, but it's moving forward. The club and the board and their committee has been involved with our project management team, staff, and as well as the architect. And as I said, we've got project drawings that are about 30% complete at this point. So moving forward. The metal shop expansion project, we are rebidding that project. I let the board know this recently, and we've shared this with our metal club. The bids came in higher than what we had budgeted. We've gone back to the club and the architect, and we're refining our scope of work. We're going to rebid that project, and hopefully we can get the cost of that actually down.
Do you anticipate that'll happen this year?
This governance here,
Well, this next governance year.
oh, I think absolutely, yeah. I think this rebidding project is going to be a setback of 1 or 2 months. So I think it's optimistic to say we'll rebid it and get recommendations completed by March, but I think it's realistic to say by April. Yep, you're welcome. In order to make sure that there is enough money, since we are, very tight this year because we haven't had a lot of capital sales with home sales down, although we know that the first 2 months so far have been positive. We're actually over budget, which is great in our home sales. Let's hope that trend continues. But nevertheless, it's down significantly from the way it was a few years ago, which is why we don't have the surpluses that we were a few years ago, which is why we aren't transferring those surpluses into the initiatives fund. So our initiatives fund is a bit tighter than it used to be. So in order to ensure that we have enough funds in the initiatives fund to make sure that we can move forward with the Metal Arts project, I've informed the board that we're going to delay the lobby project here, the West Center lobby project, just to make sure that we have enough funds. It's more important that we move forward with projects that directly impact our members in a positive way than shuffling employee seats around. And at the end of the day, I think it will be a benefit to our members to have a one-stop shop here at West Center for member services and guest services. We're able to provide those now. It's just not quite as convenient. Whereas Metal Arts, the artisan shop, other things like that really do need to move forward. So it's more important that we move forward with those, and I think pause this other project for now. Same with the Desert Hills Locker Room project. This has been talked about for a while. We finished the fitness center, great. Now we have to remodel that locker room. We're going to do that in conjunction with expanding and improving the ceramics kiln room, which is the upper level directly above the locker rooms. The floor joists have to be shored up, and we're going to do that all at the same time. So we want to make sure there's enough funds in the initiatives fund for that too, which further necessitates delaying the West Center lobby project. So we expect the locker room and the kiln project. RFP was issued February 14th. We're expecting those bids to be back March 14th. So I'm hoping that we can come to the board in April and ask the board to approve that project in April. Whoever the board may be, we don't know. It's very exciting. Desert Hills pool equipment upgrades. I know there was a lot of discussion and concern about, are we going to have to replace the Desert Hills pool? Aren't we? It doesn't look at this point like we're going to have to replace the pool, which is great. There needs to be some upgrades to the mechanical room, the plumbing, the filters, et cetera. It's nowhere going to be near the cost of actually replacing an entire pool. So we're waiting on cost estimates for that. As soon as I get those cost estimates back, I'll be able to provide a summary to the board, and I would imagine we'll put that out in the e-blast as well, because a lot of our members have had a lot of questions about what's happening with the Desert Hills pool. We're going to ask the board today if they will approve allowing non-members as guests to attend a pickleball fundraising event in March. This is a fundraising event to expand courts. Most likely at the Pickleball Center, maybe at Canoa Ranch. We're working with an architect to work on identifying what that best location would be. But the CPM does require that we come to the board and ask the board permission to do that. So that is on your agenda today. But if that does move forward and if the Pickleball Club does want to continue moving forward with expanding courts, that's another one of our projects that we're really hoping can move forward this year. So a lot of things going on. Like I said, this is the beginning of construction season. That doesn't even begin to address our MRR projects, which is all the maintenance, repair, and replacement that we have going on. We have $2.3 million worth of projects this year outside of what I just shared with you. So a lot going on. The snowbirds are good to get away during this time.
Would you like to tell them what MR&R means?
Sure. Maintenance, repair, and replacement. It's a specific fund. We put a certain amount of dollars in that fund every year so that we can maintain, repair, and replace our existing facilities.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, we have somebody here from the foundation. There she is. Come in.
We do. David, could you give us a couple updates on the map, just on what we've gotten with MAP? And then our foundation president, Beverly Tobias, is going to give us some money, I think. I'm not quite sure, but I think so. Sure.
The MAP program is a bit unique this year. We had a large increase in the applications for MAP. We had 141, which last year we had 112. So they've been increasing over the years. And in 25, we had a really large increase. To accommodate that, we had limited funds, but thanks to the foundation, we have enough to award all the people that were eligible at least a percentage of their dues. What we did is we stratified the applicants, those who were really close to the 200% of poverty. They got a 50% award. And then there's another strata that gets a 50% award. And then there's the 75, let's say that, I flipped those numbers, 75. But most or about half of the applicants get the full award. So you'll see that in your packet. That's a bit of a change. And I think going forward, that's kind of the way we're going to have to look at it, stratifying them, depending on the amount of need and the amount of monies that we have. But thankfully, we're awarding over $45,000 worth of dues waivers to those who are eligible. Thankful to the donations from members and this MAP participation.
Off. Does that tell you anything? We would like to thank the foundation for contributing to this, for working so hard to get this money. And I hear your bingo is awesome. So that's great. And a big thank you.
Really, a big thank you so much. Very helpful.
Okay. So another big thank you to the foundation for their support. And David's going to take that nice big fat check to the bank, he says. So committee reports. Nancy, audit?
The audit is in full swing right now, and I'm told that the firm will be on site next week to perform their duties here. And we're hoping to get a draft audit within the next 2 or 3 weeks, so we have it in time to review before the annual meeting.
And we're using the same auditors?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Board Affairs, Bart?
Our next meeting, which will be the last meeting of this governance year, will be second Tuesday in March. And there's no update from the last update that I provided.
Okay, Fiscal Affairs, Nellie?
Yes, we met and reviewed the January financials, and as Scott has already pointed out, our housing sales are up beyond our forecast for both January and February, so we're starting the year very well. We're also looking at completion of our year-end report that we'll submit to the committee, to the board next month, and note our carryover items. We had the discussion on cash flow, operating cash, and we'll be looking at doing a continued monitoring of that as we go into next year.
Okay, thank you, Nellie. Do you want to go right into investments?
On the investments, the committee did not meet, but the members did review the monthly investment reports, and we're within our ranges, within our investment policy statement. And we're monitoring those closely as well.
And I don't know about the other board members, but I appreciate getting those reports. I think is it Howie that's sending those out?
Yes.
They're easy to read and follow. Well, kind of easy to read and follow. So it's nice to have those. Thank you, Nellie, for that. And Howie. All right, nominations and elections. Candy.
Yeah, that would be me. Thank you, Madam Chair. This has been a very exciting time for nominations and elections. And I'd like to again to commend our 6 candidates who are running. And again, they're Beth Dingman, April Hassan-Hilliard, Dale Howard, Steve Reynolds, Lanny Smith, and Jody Walker. We've had 2 forums. One was last Thursday and one was last night. Our first one, we had about 25 visitors come. And then last night we had over 50. And things just went really smoothly. They were really good questions. And I've gotten so many compliments about what a fine set of candidates we have running this year that it's really difficult, to pick who's your favorite one. I think they just showed their personalities and they were well studied with the questions. They knew a lot of the answers. And I think any one of the 6 people would be an addition. 3 would be addition to this board. And I think they could work well with this board, but yet also be strong enough to give their own opinions and also listen to their constituents and voice their opinions as well. I'd like to thank those who worked on the event from the board, and that was Kathleen Batchelor, Bev Lawless, and Nellie Johnson, who came both nights to help me out. And thanks to those board members who attended to support our candidates and the board. And those were Barbara Blake, who was our co-chair for nominations and elections, Bart Hillier, and Dave Barker. Scott also attended, as well as Natalie Whitman from the staff, to support our nominees. And also the N&E committee was composed of Betsy Walton, who's given a lot of work, and also Brenda Stewart. And of course, Nancy Moyo, who headed up the whole thing for us. Voting began last Wednesday on 2/19, and we're going to continue voting. Voting closes on Tuesday, 3/18 at 4 p.m. You should have gotten one of these things in the mail that tells you how to vote, what your voter code is. If you didn't get one, please contact Nancy Moyo at the GVR Rec office. If you need a paper ballot and didn't get one, she can also help you out with that. Or if you need help voting electronically, there's going to be times you can come to the West Center here and we can help you vote. So whatever you need, we're here to help you. Also, the bottom line is please vote, vote, vote. The last few years, we only had about 23, 26% turnout. So we want to have as many people as we can. We're sending out blasts, we're sending out, if you go onto the website, one of the first things to click on is vote. So please vote. It's important. This board really cares about their members, and I think the new board is going to care as well. So I appreciate everything, and thank you for coming tonight.
Okay, thank you. Planning and evaluation, Jim?
We had one meeting this year and completed our mission, and I think that was in August. I can't remember when, but that's it. Thank you.
Well, that was short and sweet. Yes.
I'd just like to thank Candy. She took over for me because I have some surgical procedures planned. Now they're 2 instead of 1, and she's just done a terrific job. And last night was actually kind of fun. It went really well. The candidates were just right on, and our leader just did such a good job keeping things rolling. And oh, everybody liked the wine. And I think that's a really good idea to have a little bit of tidbits for people, but Candy just did a really nice job taking over for me, and
Okay.
I thank her.
Thank you. Okay. Consent agenda. The consent agenda items are routine items of business that are collectively presented for approval through a single motion. A board member may request that an item be pulled from the consent agenda and placed under action items for separate discussion and action. You have your fingers up? I mean, like, is that, hello, can I talk? Okay, go.
Thank you. On your seat or your desk is the first page of the work plan. It's been amended. I'm happy to pull this item and put it under action if you'd like, or you can leave it right where it is, entirely up to you. But it has been amended per request, and we're happy to move forward with it as it's been amended.
Okay, is everybody okay with this? Okay. For the audience that's here, the board had a work session. And at the work session, they talked about the work plan, and there were some changes to it that they asked Scott to make. So that's why he's resubmitting page 1 and page 2. So, okay. Any other changes? If not, I'll accept a motion. Yes.
I would move that we accept the consent agenda.
Okay, Kathy's made a motion to accept. Do I have a second?
Second.
Bev? Okay, Kathy's made a motion to accept the consent agenda and Bev has seconded. Those in favor signify by raising a hand. Unanimous. Okay, this next part is our action items. And if I forget, once the board we do 2 rounds with the board for discussion or questions or whatever. And then I'll open it up so that if you have any questions or concerns that you would like to tell us about each of these items, I'll ask you to come to the microphone, give us your name and your GVR number if you know it. If not, your address. Is that right, Scott?
Correct.
And then we'll do that before we take it forward for a vote. So the first item is to award the contract for the artisan shop improvements. Scott?
Yes, thank you. So I did briefly mention this during my CEO report at the beginning. This has been a project that has been a long time coming. This project entails moving into the recently vacated, I'm going to share this with you if it works, this recently vacated billiards room. This is just across the courtyard here at West Center. You can see the existing artisan shop right here. If you can follow my cursor, the front door is right here. The little courtyard for lapidary and wood shop are over here, and this is the door into the former billiards room. essentially this is going to turn into this. So this shows, this is where the former wall was, so they would expand into approximately 60% of the vacated billiard space, whereas lapidary, when this project moves forward, would take this 40%. So essentially, the first part of this project is going to be building a wall here. You can follow my cursor, and taking down a wall here. Now, we do have some computer equipment, DSX systems, there are some electrical things, so this little closet and this little wall here are going to remain. We've been working pretty extensively with the Artisan Club on identifying where the HVAC should be and where the electrical outlets should be and where the lighting should be, all of that. But essentially, this could move forward. We're hoping that the contractor, if this is awarded, will actually begin this project the first week of April. So that's exciting. It's moving forward. Per our process, the board approved the concept for this. Once the concept is approved, staff works with the club and goes to develop the scope of work. We then go out. We then work with the architect, to complete construction documents. This was a really simple project. We didn't really have to work with the architect on extensive construction documents on this one, so it was pretty simple. And then we go out for bid. So we did go out for bid. You can see in your staff report, there were 3 bids received: AJ Sunwest, Building Excellence, and Ralcoon. While Building Excellence wasn't the lowest, it was about the second lowest. The lowest actually didn't complete their bid. So in this case, we went with the second lowest, and we've actually worked with Building Excellence quite a bit before. They actually completed the Del Sol Clubhouse, in case you were paying attention, remember that. We've added a 10% contingency, so their bid came in at $28,650. When we add a 10% contingency, we're asking the board to actually approve an amount not to exceed $31,515. If the board does approve this, the next step is to actually award the contract, let Building Excellence know that they can proceed with this project. And this is a pretty small project. We're expecting this will be finished probably late spring, early summer, which is great. We're very excited about it. This was budgeted as a combined project, again, with lapidary and artisan expansion. Very large project. The board budgeted a total of $991,524 for this combined project. So this portion of it is really very small, $31,000. But we're excited because we've been waiting a long time for this. And I believe Priscilla, the president of Artisans, is here. She'll come up and talk when we open it up for comments.
She's going to come up and say they don't want it, right?
Yeah. I don't know about that. So any questions for me? Yes, Beth.
No, my question was only about the square footage currently and with the expansion. I didn't see anything that,
Gosh,
I
you're
just
right.
was curious what the percentage of expansion
Trying
was.
to remember off the top
You
of
know,
my head
Priscilla?
what that is. I think you're about 500 now.
Okay,
It sounds approximately right.
Okay.
Thank you for that, and I'm sorry I didn't include that.
Bev?
I just have a question. I heard from someone in the artisan shop that we are going to be taking, I think, double doors, I think from this building, and putting them in that building on the north side, just to make it a little more open and
We
welcoming.
do want to do that.
over-
That's not part of this project, though. We're going to do that separately.
Oh, okay.
We want to, once we remodel the West Center lobby and the box office there, that'll free up those double doors, since that won't be the entrance anymore. And we'll be able to hopefully, use those double doors and put them over at the artisan shop. So it'll move their entrance, but that's not going to happen with part of this project, unfortunately. It was
Okay.
really cost. We're really trying to keep our costs down.
Do I have a motion?
Oh, Did you want to ask a question?
Not yet.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right.
I told him to remind me to ask you out there.
Thank you.
I need a motion. Kathy?
Hang on, I haven't made it yet. The motion is to award the contract for the Artisan Shop Expansion Project to Building Excellence in an amount not to exceed 31,550.
Okay, and Barbara seconded. Okay, now we have a motion on the floor made by Kathy and seconded by Barbara to award a contract for the artisan shop for 31,515. Any comments from the board? You can tell Scott's already answered most of our questions. Anyone out here? Priscilla?
You got to turn it on. There's a little button there. Yeah, slides up. It's very technical, so we need IT to help.
IT help.
I did?
She did it. Look at you.
Hi, can you hear me? Priscilla Spurgeon, number 240015. I just want to show my support for approving this contract to the contractor for our expansion. Talk about a big bang for your buck. It's not a lot of money. It's a simple project, and we are going to benefit so much from this project. And I promise it's going to make GVR even mo better, because it can't do anything but that. So thank you so much for your support. It is something that we've been waiting for decades. And I'm very, very proud to be able to say that we're going to actually do it. So thank you.
Thank you. That was the first thing she said to me when I joined the club. She said, "Can you get this made bigger for us?" And I certainly understand that. We did it. So, okay. Anybody else out in the audience would like to give us their opinion or make a comment or take the project back or? All right, those in favor signify by raising a hand. I see him. I see him on there. Okay, it's unanimous. Great. Thank you very much, board. It's been a long project. It's been a tough one to get there, but we did it. So that's great. Thank you very much. Next is approve the request for non-member participation for the pickleball tournament. Who's doing that?
Steve Kindred is going to take this. He is our recreation director. And I don't know that you've all had an opportunity to meet Steve yet. So let's take this opportunity to introduce Steve Kindred as our recreation director.
Thanks, Scott. As Scott mentioned earlier, the Pickleball Club is hosting a competition / fundraiser on May 15th and 16th of this year at the Pickleball Center. The club has asked us to allow non-members, non-participating other non-members to attend the fundraiser. And this can be done with board approval. And so we are here to ask for board approval of that.
Okay, do I have a motion on this issue?
Madam Chair,
Okay,
I move approval of the non-member participation for the pickleball tournament.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay. Okay, is there any discussion on this from the board? Beth?
I'm just wondering, are there any downsides to doing this?
No, I don't see any downsides to it. I'm Jeff Washburn, president of the Pickleball Club. We don't see any downsides to it. This is in support of our court expansion proposal project. And we're just hoping to raise some money and be able to interest other people in helping us raise that money. And we're getting a pretty positive response to our efforts. I don't really see a downside.
You can stay there and if you want to.
Okay. How about if I stay here?
While we have the expert, Bev.
Just a question, are you expecting the fees mainly from people paying to watch or from other non-members paying to enter the tournament? And do you have an estimated number that you're expecting?
We had about 150 people last year when we did this. We're hoping to increase that by another 50 from non-members at least. We're going to be charging them an additional $5, which will be coming to GVR. And we're also going to be asking for so non-member guests may have people that want to come and watch them play. And so we will be identifying them and paying GVR an amount for their participation as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and one more question. I think Steve said May, unless I misunderstood, and this says March. Is it?
March 15th and
Okay.
16th.
Thank you.
And there will be, the $5 comes back to GVR.
Yeah, I wasn't
Is there
clear
a
about
higher
that.
fee that the club will keep then?
So GVR member and club member participants will pay $30 per event. Non-member participants will pay the $30 plus the $5 guest participation fee.
Okay. Okay.
So aren't we talking about guests of guests? In other words,
Well, there's two parts of it.
Right.
They're guests that will participate, they'll be playing, and guests of the guests who are playing that we're going to come to watch. So it's two different fees. As I understand it, when talking with Steve and Kathy, the non-member participant fee cannot be more than half of the regular guest fee. So that's why the $5. And then for those who are going to watch those non-member participants play, it's a fee to be determined by the club, as I understand it.
Okay. Jim.
I think it said they'll pay $30 for each event. How do you break it up? Is it over 2 days, and is it morning and evening, or what?
Yeah, it's going to be both days, and it's going to be men's. There'll be a men's event, there'll be a women's event, and there will be a mixed men's and women's event.
Okay. Any other questions while we have him captive? Kathy.
I just have a question, and it may be more of a question to Scott than to Jeff. When we're talking about guests coming to watch people who are playing, because this is a fundraiser, can we not direct all of those funds to the pickleball club as a portion of that fundraiser? They're saving us a great deal of money in the long run to build the courts so that GVR does not need to do that. It just seems like the total fee, and even people who are just coming to watch other people, should go to the club for this fundraiser.
It does seem that should be the way it is, and I agree with you. This is really the same concern or issue that we have with charging non-member guests a 25-cent surcharge at the Del Sol Cafe Clubhouse. Per our bylaws, we have to charge a separate fee for non-members. So that's what this separate fee is for. And in that case, GVR has to recoup those dollars. And in this case, it's the same from what I understand. I'd really like to be able to figure out a way to funnel it just to
Can
the
the
club.
board have a motion to funnel part of or all of that?
You know, you can,
$5 back?
I would like that. I think you can. It doesn't mean it's going to happen though. If you motion it, and I can double check with the attorney, because it always comes back to the law. It really falls back to the interpretation of what the bylaws says. And I think our attorney has raised his hand. But in this case, yeah, I think the attorney, the corporate attorney, not Mr. Hillier, may figure out a way that, sure, there's some wiggle room here. If this is the intent of the board, then we could probably figure out a way to do that, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, Bart?
It strikes me that it might be easier and serve essentially the same purpose if the board just vote to put that $5 ahead into a subcategory and mark it. Mark it, M-A-R-K, separate word, mark it as having come from the pickleball tournament. And that way, later on, I mean, we can see easily that at least that amount of money should be available toward the construction of new courts.
That's creative. That makes sense.
That's pretty creative. David, can you do that?
We can do anything.
Whoa. Yeah. You all heard that, right? You have 12 witnesses out here plus. Okay. So Scott, are you saying in response to Kathy's question, are you saying that we probably should not make a motion to give them the money back?
It's probably easier if we just follow what Bart's recommendation is. We can keep track of it and then give it back to him at some point for the club.
Okay.
So Marge, my thought was, to be clear, was because it's a fundraiser, it might be different than having to charge a fee for the
Sure.
Del Sol property, but Scott can check that with James and
Yeah.
when they determine we can, I don't know that we even need to look at it again, but that
Sure.
was my reasoning for bringing it up.
Okay.
It's a good point.
Thank you very much for answering all our questions.
Yes, thank you. And I'd like to invite you all to come and play.
And watch.
Hey, or watch. Anyone else that would like to make a comment to the board? All right, so we have a motion on the floor to authorize the GBR Pickleball Club to allow non-competing, non-GBR members to attend their March fundraising competition with appropriate guest fees, which will be relayed to GBR. Those in favor signify by raising a hand. Unanimous. You're a little low there, slow, Joe. Okay. The next item on our agenda is to amend the corporate policy manual sections pertaining to maintenance, repair, and replacement parts A and B as drafted and approve contracting with Browning to complete the 2025 reserve study. On-site is required in 2025. Who's doing that? Scott, are you doing that?
I
Nellie.
think the treasurer is doing that.
All right.
FAC chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to direct your attention to page 37 in the book, and there's also a PowerPoint on it because it is a more of a complex topic, and I have a number of slides just to provide some background information on the topic. The Fiscal Affairs Committee and the board had a work session starting in October to look at the issue of the repair and replacement fund. And the repair and replacement fund, if we can get the PowerPoint up. Repair and replacement fund, there are two parts of our repair and replacement reserve funds. There's the Part A that refers to our buildings, facilities, equipment. And there is a Part B that refers to our pools and spas. The Part A that refers to our facilities has been funded since 2016, and the reserve study is done by an outside contractor, by Browning. And we had been reserving, setting aside money from member dues and home sales, trying to fund up to a target of 85% of what is known as fully funded requirement. And that is a range that we're going to be talking about with regard to the formula that we're using. On the pool side, that was not originally included in the reserve study in 2016, but was created in 2020 at the time that we started to look at rebuilding the East Pool. That reserve study is completed by staff, and we set aside approximately 7% at this time of our dollars to build up that reserve for the pools. So as we look at the summary of our recommendations, we are looking at maintaining the the reserves as two separate reserves, as is the current policy. And we are looking at the establishing language that sets up a range for each of the reserves so that we make sure that our facilities and our pools, that the dollars are there to adequately maintain these entities. So as we look at the specifics of each of these reserves, I want to talk first about the changes to the Part A, our facilities and equipment. So on this slide, as we can see, we have in the past 2025, prior to that, we were contributing about 6.5% each year to our reserve fund. And this reserve fund has about $6.9 million in it. And it had been based on 85% of fully funded requirements, which was deemed to be according to Browning, at the very high end of what is needed for most not-profits. And so we did look at the need to fund it at that level and are recommending that we lower it a bit and still maintain an adequate reserve for the needs that are within there. And so in our budget, we have a 4.3% growth that is built into our contribution each year. So as we look at the impact on our contribution level, this graph is a little bit complex, but you can see that in the blue, that was what we had been contributing at the 85% level. And so you can see the rise in our contribution level. And you will see in the orange bar that we're reducing that slightly and going up to 2048 where we'll reach our 70%. We're also looking at on the next page, setting up a minimum amount. And so the next chart shows that in the Browning report, the 70% is at the lower of the stronger side for not-for-profits to be funded for their reserves. So again, we believe that we are sufficiently funded for maintaining our buildings. In addition to the having a high end that you want to be able to reach as your threshold goal, we are also looking at the need for establishing a minimum level that is needed, and that is based on what is called the cost of replacement. And that is being set at or about 25% of the cost of replacement. This chart shows where we're at with each of those ranges. You can see that moving towards our threshold at 70%, we're right now at 60.5%. So we're moving towards that with our contribution levels each year. At our minimum threshold level, we're at 34.7%. So again, it reflects that we're adequately funded in our Part A facilities maintenance reserve. When we look at where we are at with regard to what we actually spend each year, what we spend in each year can actually vary depending upon the inflation, the timing of completion of projects, the scheduling, contracting out. COVID impacted our schedule. So you can see our trends with regard to what we, and this is coordinated by our GVR staff, that in the past we have been spending 69 to 79% in 2021, up to 93% in 2023. And you can see that we have a major commitment as we move into 2025. We have dedicated, according to our reserve study, $2.3 million for all of our repairs and maintenance and building needs. So we have made a significant contribution to ensuring our maintenance of our buildings. When we look at the Part B funds, these are the pools and spas. And this is for the total replacement of pools and spas. Pools and spas, if they do need repairs, are handled in the Part A that I just referred to. So when we look at the pools and spas, We have 13 pools within GVR of varying age. The normal life of a pool is 35 years, and 7 of our pools have already reached that useful life. And some, as we look at our maintenance repairs, we're looking at extending that useful life, similar to what we did with East. The East pool lasted over 50 years. And so when we're looking at replacement going into the future, we believe that we can be just beyond the 35 years. We have looked at the need for the pools. If you see on the next slide, you'll see the age of our pools. And our 13 pools, with the ones in the orange, are beyond their useful life of 35 years. With the ones in the green, you can also see the differing size of pools that we have within GVR. We have already made the commitment and acknowledgement that this reserve is not as adequately funded as our facilities. So we did, quote, jumpstart, and put a 7% increase into our budget as well as our 3-year forecast in order to build up this reserve to ensure that we have adequate reserves going into the future to replace these pools. So as you look at where we have ended up with on our proposed ranges, from a fully funded balance standpoint, with our threshold at 70%, we are basically at 27.6%. So we have about $1.6 million in our fund balance, and our fully funded balance target is $5.8 million. So we have a ways to go before we can reach our 70%. The same is true as for our threshold at the lower level. We are at 10.2%. And so it will take us a number of years in order to reach that threshold. So as we do look at our budget going into the future, you will see these commitments being made to maintain our pools, and also the need at the end of the year to look at other funds that may be available to add to this pool reserve so that we can reach our targets at a quicker pace. So in summary, our recommendations from the Fiscal Affairs Committees are both basically in 2 different parts. First, the motion is to maintain the reserves as separate reserves with the motion to retain Browning as our contractor for the M&R-A reserve study, which they will do on site this year, beginning in July. In addition, our recommendation is that the reserve study that's done by staff for the Part B, which is done annually, should be posted on the website, similar to the Browning study. So that would be our motion for the recommendation for the first part. The second part deals with the funding formula, and the funding formula is outlined in the on page for your CPM language changes on page 34 and 35. I do have one minor suggestion for the Part B study part. And that is the same language, except it would read 70% of the fully funded balance calculated within the annual reserve report completed by staff. With
Say
that,
that again. Nellie, you're changing that on this?
I'm changing about the 8th line in on page 35 for the Part B. It's an acknowledgement. When it says calculated with the annual reserve, that would say strike study and insert report completed by staff. It's an acknowledgement that that report is completed by the staff and not the Browning report.
Is that change from your committee, or is that something you personally want to add, or?
It's more of a technical adjustment. It was discussed in our committee. It's the study is not done by Browning, it's done by staff.
Okay.
So that the recommendation with the CPM language in both Part A and Part B would establish the desired range to be on or about 70% of the fully funded balance for both Part A and B, and establish a minimum threshold funding level on or about 25% of the cost of replacement. It also includes the definition of the cost of replacement. So that is a summary of our recommendations. I can move that into two motions at this time in order to open it up for questions.
Okay, so now, do I have a second to her two motions? Okay, Kathy's gonna second. Make sure Nancy got all that, would you please? Okay. All right, this is a very complex issue. I think some people understand it, some people don't, and I'm kind of in between. But there are two reserve accounts. One is for just the regular maintenance and repair, correct?
Right.
And that's the one, that's the big one. And then, was it 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it might have been more than that, 5 years when they came up with the pool one?
2021.
21. They came up with a separate reserve to do pools because pools were getting older and costing more and taking a lot of the money out of the MR&R. So I think if I understand right, and I got this recapped right, what the committee's asking us to do is to separate those two now instead of them being joined together. Separate them so they're two separate accounts. And the MR&RA, which is the regular maintenance and repair, that's under the Browning study, and they'll be here this year to do a new study. But the pool is under the staff. Is that correct, Nellie?
Madam Chair, they've always been separate, and so it really retains them as separate accounts, but it ensures that we have a funding formula that builds to ensure that they have adequate funding streams behind them.
Okay. See, I told you I didn't fully understand it. Okay. So I'm going to start with we have a motion on the floor. Nellie made a motion, and who seconded? Kathy did. All right. So we have a motion on the floor. Yes.
Question,
Really?
when you're ready.
Okay, go.
Nellie, question page 36I. This talks about current replacement cost percentages, a projected balance of the reserve, yada, yada. The MRA reserve study completed by the contractor and the MRB reserve report completed by staff. That's in the red line on page 36. So you said you had a change you said it was on page 35.
That's correct. It's on 35, Part B, under target balance.
Okay, the target balance of the MRB fund shall be 25% of the total replacement cost with the target of at or about 70% of the fully funded balance. Calculated with the annual reserve study. Where do we want it to say?
Right there.
At the end of reserve study?
Yeah, cross out study, put report completed by staff.
Okay, and cross out study, period at the end of reserve. Report to be completed by staff. Thank you.
Nancy's trying to do our minutes. She's online, so hopefully her Wi-Fi stays up and running and we speak into the microphone so she can hear us. But she's taking minutes far, far away, holding the baby, I'm sure. And I don't hear the baby crying, so I guess we're okay. All right, so any other questions for Nellie? Okay.
Nellie mentioned, we're going to build up the reserve fund over years, and then you mentioned additional funds. What additional funds?
The board each year, if there is any surplus at the end of the year, has the opportunity to look at transferring those funds to other reserves. It could use that. In addition, the board has looked at the emergency reserve, and any dollars over and beyond $500,000, which is really the investment income, has been transferred to the initiative fund. that could be transferred to the pool fund. So those are decisions that could be made by the board at the end of each year to determine which areas there are higher priorities.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, do we have any questions from from our members that are present? Does anybody out there understand this? Do you have a question? No? Okay. Comments? Okay, we have a motion we have one large motion on the floor to move forward with this. Those in favor signify by raising a hand. Unanimous. Thank you, Nellie, for all your work. And thank your committee, please. This was a monster of a job. Okay, the next one is to amend the CPM procurement policy. Scott, I think you're on for this
I
one.
am, yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. So you recall the board adopted a procurement policy not that long ago. It was needed. We really needed some clear goals with very clear expectations about how procurement in particular would be handled, especially with respect to contracts. The board did move forward with that. The policy was based on existing reserve policy, and I'll explain that a little bit, but we've just talked about MRR A and MRR B and initiatives. Those are all reserve policies, and there was existing policy in place. So when we developed the procurement policy, we didn't make any changes to the reserve policy, and now we're seeing some of the consequences of that. So I wanted to point some of those out. Consequences essentially are some delays, for example. I'd like you to turn just to the procurement policy, which is page 57 in your book. There's a table at the top of the chart. And I want to remind everybody, just because there's a procurement policy here doesn't mean that we can just spend money. The money still has to be budgeted. So for example, the lapidary project that we just talked about here, budgeted at $991,000 for the year. So that's been budgeted. That's in the initiatives fund. This policy right here says bidding requirements for dollar amounts under $10,000. There's no bidding requirement. The director, manager, supervisor can sign that agreement or that contract. Amounts that are between $10,000 and $999,000, $999.99. We have to obtain at least 3 quotes or bids. At least our goal is to obtain 3 quotes or bids, and then the CEO can sign that contract. For dollar or contracts over 100,000 or greater, we're required to do a formal RFP where our goal is again to achieve at least receiving 3 proposals, and then the board has to award that contract and authorize the president to sign the contract. So under that, you will see 5.43, there are exceptions, several exceptions. A is just about reoccurring monthly annual bills, and I'm going to come back to that one in a minute. But B is maintenance, repair, and replacement, which is MRRA. And if you turn the page to 58, and we had a printing problem. Some of our pages are upside down. I'm really sorry about that. We don't know how to use the printer, but we figured it out. The next exception is the initiatives fund. Now you'll see in both of those, it says all expenditures of money from this fund. It says the same in MRR B. Funds for this must be approved by the board. It doesn't matter what the dollar amount is. So in the case of the West Center lapidary expansion, we last month had the board approve a contract for architectural services. Those were about $45,000, if I recall. So the procurement policy, which is in that table, if there were no exceptions, would have been the middle column or the middle row, which is between 10,000, 999,000, which means we could have obtained 3 quotes and the CEO could have moved forward with approving that contract. But because of the exception, under initiatives. We had to come back to the board for that. Unfortunately, that resulted in about a 2-month delay. And so in order to streamline the process, we went with this concern to the Fiscal Affairs Committee. And what we have redlined for you really starts, again, as I said, this starts with the procurement policy. We're removing or recommending removal of the exceptions under 5.43. The 2 exceptions we're recommending for removal are MRRB, which is pools and spas. That's the replacement of pools and spas. And the next is page 58, which is initiatives. Pools and spas, you'll recall, because of the uncertainty with the Desert Hills Pool, I asked the board some time ago if I could get approval to move forward with expenditures because we needed to hire several consultants. Again, these weren't high-cost consultants. We're talking $10,000 to $15,000 for these. But because, I know, Bart, I know, it's unfortunately, it's a lot of money for me, absolutely, but for a consultant, not necessarily. So to move forward with that, I needed the board to actually approve it. I couldn't actually move forward with it myself because of this exception. Now, had the board said, all right, we're going to authorize $20,000 from MRRB in the budget for 2024 or 5, whichever year we were at, and we were following the procurement policy, the CEO could have moved forward and signed that without bringing it back to the board. Same with the lapidary expansion. If that exception wasn't part of the procurement policy, then the CEO could have moved forward with authorizing and allowing the contractor, the architect, to move forward with starting those construction documents back in November. That would have saved us some time. So those are the 2 exceptions that we're first of all recommending removing. And if you'll flip back to the actual reserve policies, which I believe start on page 53, and this was the basis for developing the procurement policy. So now we're going back to the reserve policies, and you'll see under, again, both of them are on page 53. The first one is, and again, my pages are a little upside down here, but we're talking about MRRB. It says the board, what we're striking is it says the board shall authorize any monies spent from this fund. And what we're saying now, what we're recommending is authorization part 5, section 4 of the actual procurement policy applies. Same with the initiatives fund below. You can see the red line under part D, part 5, section 4 procurement policy shall apply. So I know it's a little complicated. We're really just asking that the board apply the same procurement policy that you've already adopted to both your initiatives and your MRRB funds so that we can move forward with lower costing contracts, permit fees, those kinds of things, so that we're not holding back, waiting for the board to meet, which on average meets every month, if we're lucky.
Okay, and
So-
Scott, let me clarify something.
Sure.
Did we ever approve, this procurement policy was set up by the board on a temporary, do you remember that? Did we
Yeah, that
ever
was-
Approve it?
Oh, yeah. No, this was, the pilot was the capital improvement policy. This was the procurement policy.
Okay,
One is just about the capital process. This was procurement, and this one was approved.
okay,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's put a motion on the floor first, then we'll open it for board discussion.
Madam Chair, I'm going to move adoption of the procurement policies as recommended and the CPM before us.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, Barbara. So Nellie has made the motion to accept and Barbara has seconded. Now let's open it for questions from the board. Beth?
Maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but why are we then approving a contract for $38,000?
Because that was first on the agenda.
So if we pass this, then we don't have to approve the agenda. That's what I was,
Well, that's correct. So in this case, I could have moved forward with approving the artisan shop project.
Does
Had-
that mean
had we
I
done
don't
it
have
that
to
way.
sign the contract? You
No,
said?
no. At this point, it still was in the board's purview.
Okay.
So, and you've got them right here. If you need a pen, here it is. But yeah, you're correct. If that would have been first on the agenda, we could have switched things around.
Okay.
But I didn't want to take the risk and wanted to make sure that it was very clear the board supports this project and wanted to
Okay.
move forward with it.
Nellie?
Just want to speak on behalf of my motion. This actually was reviewed by the Fiscal Affairs Committee, and it was unanimous for its approval. Scott has commented, it's really an efficiency move. And the fact that it prevents delays in projects that the board has already conceptually approved, but it allows staff to follow the procedures and policies that are effective in other areas. So it was something that was supported by the FAC committee.
Okay. Okay. So this change was looked at by Fiscal Affairs. It did not go through Board Affairs, correct? Okay. Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the board? How about from our members in attendance? Well, you guys are being awful quiet out there. Okay, those in favor of Nellie's motion, please raise a hand. Unanimous. So I'm sure you'll spruce it up here any minute. Okay, the next item is to amend the corporate policy manual changes to Part 1, 1.2.6 A through E, use of GVR facilities. Go, Scott.
All right, well, thank you. This policy was amended about a year or so ago upon staff recommendation. The goal here was to ensure adequate meeting room space because we have high demand real estate, especially this time of year. This time of year, we are booking on average 350 meetings a week, which is phenomenal. So real estate is high in demand at GVR from the beginning of January through about mid-April, and then it kind of tapers off after that. So we really tightened up the policy, which has been really helpful. There are some consequences similarly to the previous policy discussion that we learned. For example, if an HOA, for example, wanted to be able to use a facility and it was during a certain time of year where they were precluded from using it just because that's how the policy was written, there was a chance that that room could remain vacant and not be actually used, even though we have a potential user for that room. So we have recognized that that was a problem, and we've gone into our policy document, use of facilities, page 60, and we have clarified some of the language. Some of it was cleanup language. The first underscore, for example, is cleanup language. Reservations are required to reserve a room or facility for exclusive use. That means if you want the room just for you, then you really do need to reserve it. Otherwise, rooms sometimes are now unlocked. I don't know if some of you've noticed that, but we used to lock the rooms. Now we open the rooms. If there's no reservation in there and you want to go in and use that room, it is your facility. You are free to do it. If there's somebody reserved in there, we post the calendar outside, the schedule. That means somebody's coming in at a certain time. You can use it up to that point as long as you put it back the way you found it. So that was one thing. We've added some language here. Again, you can see where I've added underscore meetings and a couple times. For example, regularly scheduled club meetings and activities, HOA and community meetings and events. We used to have 3-month groups. Now they're actually 4-month groups. So this was again, an opportunity to do some housekeeping. Item B here is really the crux of this discussion. The stricken language says club and HOA business meetings are limited to non-peak hours from October through April after 2 p.m. on weekdays and during all operating hours on weekends. Now, to some degree, that served us well in some cases, but as I said, there were examples where a room would sit vacant because we're following the letter of the policy, and yet that HOA or that club was interested in using it, but it was outside of the parameters that it was allowed. So we talked about it pretty extensively internally and developed a recommendation that we simply follow the reservation priority order, which is number 1. You can see above that, and that we simply remove that further limitation, which is B. So the reservation policy order stays the same. And honestly, these have really, other than a few little changes, this priority order has been in place for quite some time. Essential corporate business is on top. Recreational programming, again, we're looking at our mission here, is number 2. That's special events, classes, lessons, concerts, festivals, performances. One-time annual events is number 3. Regular scheduled club and meeting activities, weekly or monthly, is 4. 5 is HOA and community meetings and events, and that's followed by private member functions and 4-member or 4-month groups. And then at the bottom would be non-member rentals. So that priority list has really been in place for quite some time. Again, it's been tweaked a little bit, but that's really been the policy that staff looks to when reserving rooms. So, yes.
And it says here, club one-time annual special events. It's my experience that most clubs maybe have 3 annual special events like potlucks, or 3 or 4 maybe a year. So I just wondered how, for example, I know the volleyball club has 3, special dinners a year. So is there any way to just say club one-time or club special events as opposed to one-time annual?
We could. I think D is the next thing. So in most cases, we've got a one-time annual big event. But D here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, is regularly scheduled club meetings and activities. So if you're doing, say, a potluck every month, every 3 months or 4 months, I think we can do that. I don't see a problem with that, other than it's going to, without that, we would probably keep it as a number 4 priority. With it, we would probably bump it to a number 3. It's all, we can do it. I want to say it's all based on real estate. So generally, if a club is reserving a space that many times a year, then that means that space isn't being used for something else, which would be the other items. Those could be other activities. Although in this case, our priorities, we've got corporate business, recreation programming. After that, so you might be bumping regularly scheduled club meetings and activities. So now that we're talking it through, I'm not sure I see a concern or a problem.
Do we have a definition for what a special event is? Have we defined that? Since Beth wants to cause.
One-time
a little
annual
chaos.
special events. No, we've never done that. Usually we've just reviewed it or looked at it as the annual potluck, the annual get-together, the annual meeting.
Okay.
Bart? Yeah, well, I'm trying to think if maybe we want to just say club, get rid of I don't know about one time or annual. I knew Natalie would have a question or a comment on this. Do you want to approach the mic, Madam Chief Administrative Officer or Chief Operating Officer?
You're not going to let him get away with not answering, are you?
The one-time event, we're talking about things like a New Year's Eve dance
the festivals, the artisan festivals that happen here, a tournament out at Pickleball Center. So once a year, these big things, so that they make sure that they get the room. Basically, we want to carve out those reservations for those clubs before an incidental potluck from a different group. That's
Shouldn't
what was
you-
the original intention.
Shouldn't you identify
you.
those in the policy though, so that it's pretty clear what they are?
We could probably define them loosely in some way, but I wouldn't want to like list them because clubs come up with new things.
We could just say such as, maybe
Yeah, such as an annual festival or annual tournament or,
annual festival or tournament.
right. Yeah,
Okay,
but it's not something that they do 5 times a year. It's just usually once a year.
It's kind of
Okay.
their big thing.
okay, Bart, did you have a question or a comment?
Well, I wanted to piggyback off of your question about a definition. And it may be in here and I missed it, but I don't think so. I had never heard of 3-month clubs until, I guess it was a year and a half ago, maybe, when Natalie actually came to us and described to us the difficulties of dealing with the multiple room reservations arising from 3-month clubs. And now I see it's 4-month clubs instead of 3-month clubs. And, you know, I'm hoping that maybe we can keep increasing the number until eventually the month clubs just go away entirely. But what exactly was a 3-month club that is now a 4-month club? And would it be worthwhile to stick just a sentence in there explaining what a 4-month club is?
I'm gonna turn this one over to Steve, but I think we'll see what he has to say.
Yeah, a 3-month club, which is, I'm sorry, 3-month group, now a 4-month group, is just a group of members, 6 or more, who get together and reserve a room to play cards, do yoga, do what they're going to do as a group of members. And that it's simply as simple as that.
Part of the challenge that we had previously is there was no size limitation or minimum on 3 or 4-month groups. So, you know, a group could be 1, 2, or 3 people reserving a room to do yoga. And when this policy was changed, and the board agreed, we would set a minimum of 6. So that's at least, I think, made it, you know, it's been more accommodating, I think, to some of the larger groups, whereas, you know, we were reserving valuable real estate for 1 or 2 members. And I think that's why we were okay with going with the 3 or 4-month clubs, groups, because we brought that minimum up. But please.
Are these groups like subsets or subordinate to some larger club? No?
Not at all. They're not affiliated with the club in any way.
So
Question.
Since you created this 3-month or 4-month thing, there should be a definition, right? I mean, somewhere in here, and maybe Natalie would be the person to answer that, but to say what they are, because it is confusing, at least to me, exactly what they are. I mean, can I get Kathy and Jim and we can go, no, I'd have to have 6, right? And then I can rent a room, get a room,
Get a room.
and we can go
Be
get a
careful.
room and play cards. I was careful with that.
I have a question. Now, Scott, we talked to this on the side, but now does the club have to have a president and a vice?
Clubs do, but again, 3-month, 4-month groups don't, because they're not separate 501c4s. They're not a club. They're just a couple, 3, minimum of 6 members that say, hey, we want to reserve a room. We want to reserve a space so that we can do whatever activity it is. Again, it's a huge improvement from the way it used to be. We used to reserve rooms because there was no policy that said we couldn't, for one person that wanted to put in their yoga tape and do yoga, one person in one of our rooms. And that took up a lot of room away, it took it away from other people. But I'm looking at the definition here, so it's kind of in here. It says reservations for these activities require attendance of 6 or more members. That's really what a 4-month group is. It's 6 or more members wanting to reserve a room, a space for whatever activity that may be.
So one person or two people no longer can rent a room, reserve a room.
That's right.
It has to be a group of 6.
6 or more, correct. And that's the policy that went into place a year or so
Yeah,
ago.
I remember that.
Right.
Doesn't mean it was right.
Well, no, it doesn't.
Have-
It wasn't right. That's why we're amending it partly.
Bev?
I have a question that now seems like it might be a good time to ask, and possibly Steve or Natalie would be the best one to answer it. I recently attended our HOA potluck, and the reservations were from 5 to 7. And the room was ready, tables were set up, chairs were up, and our entertainment committee or social committee, whatever you want to call it, got there early to put tablecloths on, to set out decorations on the table, get the water ready, etc. And they were not allowed in. They said the policy is that you only get the room from 5 to 7. They could not get it ready. The door was locked. They were not allowed in till 5. This appears to be a change from what they were allowed to do before. So I don't know if it's miscommunication between staff and the people that set up those rooms or what, but it was very inconvenient for them. They had to, so everybody's coming with their food at 5 o'clock and there's no place, I mean, it just wasn't ready.
I'll jump in first, but usually when the reservation is made, there is time before the event where the reservation occurs, an hour before, for example, and an hour after for setup and breakdown. In that case, they probably should have reserved it from 4 to 8.
Right.
And so we don't know if they didn't ask the right question or if we didn't ask the right question. Do you need time, lead time, and then breakdown time? That's my thought, but Steve, did you want to jump in on?
I would just say if you want to communicate the specifics to me, I'll check it out.
Yeah, it
You
was
know,
just,
I-
the same person has always made the reservation and it was a change from what has been allowed before. She's
Yeah.
always done it this way. And all of a sudden, they're not allowed in the room until 5. So she said next time she would reserve it earlier.
Right.
If that's what's required, she'll do that.
Yeah,
So-
I do management for some of the HOAs. And I got an email from Jody and she said, no, you can't go in at 3 o'clock and set up because you don't have the room till 4. So now I reserve it at 3 so that they have that hour to get set up. And maybe, I don't know, do we need to?
Well, I think we probably just need to communicate that we need to ask the question, do you need time to set up? And if you do, then we need to add that time to the reservation.
Or maybe even communicated in our newsletter or something that says, when you make a reservation, your reservation starts at the time of the reservation, not a half hour, an hour before. So if you need setup time, make the reservation for that. Jody sent out several emails reminding me of that because we were violating it. So.
Yeah, Jody's getting ready now to send out to the HOAs for the next 4-month period, and I'll make sure she adds that
Okay,
when she
that,
reaches.
that might be helpful if
Yeah.
she puts something on there that tells us when we set them up. Great.
Did I hear you say earlier, Scott, that the rooms are not locked now? And there's,
Well, it depends on the room. If there's going to be an event or something, sometimes they may be locked, depends on what the room is. But usually if it's just a meeting room that's open or there's a piano in there, somebody wants to go in and play, they can do that. But in general, it kind of depends on the meeting rooms. But yeah, we've tried to leave them unlocked so that if they're available and members want to go in and use them when they're available, they can do that.
Okay, we need to have a motion. Do I have anybody that wants to make a motion here? Okay, Kathy's gonna make a motion.
Excuse me. A motion to amend the sections of the CPM associated with use of GVR facilities and rentals and fees as presented.
Okay. And Jim makes the second. So Kathy has moved with Jim as the second. Now, I did this backwards. Does any board member have any comments? Any questions? Okay, about, oh, we got one. It's like a fishing rod. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Tony Ellison, and a month ago I sent you all a letter. My GVR number is 258724. Specifically about the HOA, where we rank partially. Now that I see that portion, I didn't know that portion. In the past, our HOA was able to have monthly during season. And somebody on the social committee was called, made the reservations for the 6 months, and we were set, and we showed up and we did our functions for our HOA. Then last year it was the sweeping decision to do it every other month. Which ones do you pick? Where do you pick? How do you? And then it was random. That only one person could do it. Well, that person's not on the social committee anymore. So it's this random trying to set 6 dates, 3 hours, so 18 hours at one facility. And it has just become really frustrating to be on that committee, to do something right, to have a social event, and in your mission statement, the words that came out to me in your mission statement is to create opportunities for blah, 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 social activities. And what you did last February was you revoked those privileges by limiting us to every other month, or we had to pay, or I could not figure it out. I could not figure out why. And then when I asked, okay, why? And it was people abused it. Who abused it? How did they abuse it? Were we abusive? How do you know you were abusive? So those were all my questions.
Okay.
And
thank you.
so I sent that letter and I did not get a response. I received a letter.
Who'd you send it to?
All of you.
And I didn't answer you?
I just got a letter that I just said, I received something that said, you all received it. That's all I got. No other answer to any of my questions about that. So my question, I don't know if I even have a question. I feel like our HOA is 170 mandatory GVR members. Everybody in our HOA. We do not have a clubhouse because across the street is a GVR. And when our neighborhood was built, it was built on the fact that we would be able to use that GVR right there. So this sweeping decision that you all made has affected 170 of us, and we're really trying to include everybody and use the facility that they pay for. Many of our people, and once a month, we'll have 60, 70, we're gonna have our picnic next month. 100 people will come to it. So when you're talking about 1 person, 3 people, 2 people, 6, okay, but what about the 60 and 70 and 100 that for 3 hours once a month just set, so we can do a good job of planning a fun event for everybody in our neighborhood. So I'm very confused about how you got where you got, why HOAs are 5th on the list of people who can sign up. And the randomness of who can call and do it and when you have to do it for when. It's just, all of it is overwhelming to just, and then you go up there and it's like, wow, we could have had an event this month. What you were saying earlier. We could have had an event for our people, but we were forced to just do 3. And now we're doing stuff in our cul-de-sacs and people have to bring their own chairs. And it's like, so I don't know the process of how you get back to me or how we help change that so that the HOAs that are really paying a ton into these facilities actually get to use them more of a priority. Because we would love to be able to, in April, our committee be able to plan for next year, have our dates set, and then we have time then when everybody comes back to put on some really great events for people. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Tony, let me start out with an apology for not answering. I don't remember seeing your email, but Kathy, did I answer? And did staff not respond?
all they said was, we received your email. That's all it says.
Okay. So
And
number
it's been
one,
shared.
number one, I apologize for me and for all these other guys sitting here. Yeah, but I think this fixes the problem. I hear what you're saying. I think all of us have gotten phone calls from HOAs saying, why do I have to wait until 2? Why can't I have it tomorrow morning? Why can't I have 4 of them instead of 3? So I think this fixes the mistake we made. And I think staff has to do this. They're trying to make the facilities available for everyone. And an HOA is made up of HOA members, but the HOA is not a member. So the HOA members get priority. Boy, this is complicated, but the HOA members get priority over the HOA itself. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Scott's not going to bail me out on this one.
You did.
So, but I do think we fixed it. If this is accepted, I think this fixes it. And
what-
I know we can ask Steve to make
Okay.
sure when Jody sends it out, Jody sends out a letter with the whole thing for signing up. And I know at one time she used to say she needed 1 contact person. One year I gave her 2 contact people and her answer was, which one? I said 1. And so, and I understand that because she's dealing with a lot of HOAs. But at least if you know that there is 1, and I'm sure Steve's listening. You taking notes over there, Steve? All right. So does that answer some of your thoughts, your questions?
But it is will we be able to next year have 6 dates, 1 per month in season?
I don't see any reason why. It doesn't say here.
Did it change the verbiage? I didn't hear you say taking out the every other month.
Okay, what it says is club and HOA business meetings are limited to non-peak hours from October through April and after 2 p.m. on weekdays and during all operating hours on the weekend. That's going away.
Okay, but then the next sentence.
There is no next sentence.
Isn't there,
Is there?
there's something about only 3 or every other month? Every other month is in there.
Yes, that's going away also. That's in section 1.2.4 of the CPM. All the
1.2.
verbiage, all the verbiage about granted up to 6 private events every other month. That's all lined out.
Okay.
That's all lined out to go away.
Okay, so, but we're still at only every 4 months. So like in September, you have to request for January, that kind
Well,
of.
the change says 1.2.4, Steve. Okay, it says members and groups composed solely of GVR members are not subject to a reservation fee. And then everything else was dropped in that sentence, in that paragraph.
Okay, that sounds good. Better.
Steve, is there anywhere in here that says that they can only meet 3 times a year or 4 times a year?
But that
The
got
one
wiped out.
piece.
That it?
One piece.
That's it. Okay. It'll be gone if
Okay.
we accept it.
Okay, okay. But we're still at one person, whether they're part of that committee or not, they are that one person because the board members are the ones that set the meetings for the board meetings. And then the social committee sets for, in our HOA. So we still need that one person to do that piece.
I think, you know, we're not supposed to be having conversations.
I know,
with
I
people.
apologize.
You're violating my.
Your space, I got
Okay,
it.
all right, and Scott's roaring over here to correct this, but I think if you have more than one person,
You're
yeah,
on to something.
Yeah.
Keep going.
then I have one HOA that has 2 people, one that does the socials and one that sets up the business meetings. As long as Jody knows that that person is social and that person is business meetings, she allows me to do it. But I have to beg and take her cookies. No, I'm only kidding.
I make cookies.
Oh, good. So, but I don't know, Steve.
Yeah.
Is there anything is there only one, or can she work something out so they can do 2?
She could, but I'm sorry to say that at times there have been more than one and there have been conflicting dates and times. submitted. And that's her reason for only having one.
Okay. But we can do 6 months and we can go from there. Okay.
Here's my promise to you. Well, I'm going to try to promise. If this doesn't work and if you have problems, send us another email so that we know that there are problems. And I promise the board will respond with more than thank you for your email. I'm really good at thank you for your email. But staff generally sends more information, than, so I'm not sure why you didn't get an email explaining it all, but it looks like they're proposing that these things be fixed.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
You did what? I'm sorry. Oh.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I have one question, please. Assuming this passes, when does this take effect that we can do more than every other month?
Right now, today.
Right now.
Right now.
My social person will be very happy.
And I think that this has been a way that the staff was trying to make sure that there were rooms for the things and then found out, and I could be wrong. Natalie will throw pins at me if I'm wrong. She throws pretty hard. But I think found out that there's too many empty rooms. So, you're still probably not going to always get the dates you want. But Steve, I think if we can somehow explain this once we pass it.
Yes, there'll be an update to the reservation policy that's posted on the website.
Okay. And that goes out, that she
Correct.
sends out in the
Mhm.
email. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So I have a motion on the floor made by Kathy and seconded by Jim. If there's no
Can I
more.
just make a quick comment on page 61, K, which is now J? It says smoking and vaping are allowed in designated outdoor areas only. Maybe we could just change, just make that change.
So I tried to explain this in an email, but the draft that you're looking at is was redlined before the board approved its smoking and vaping policy. Has nothing to do with what you're looking at. The policy that
Okay.
you've adopted as a board regarding both vaping and smoking has been updated on the master copy, and it is
Okay.
correct online. What is before you is an older version, but it's irrelevant because I'm not asking you to change that policy, only the policy concerning reservations.
She's trying to cause chaos.
Is in the past, we have had board members say, well, something was changed and I don't know why it was changed, or it was adopted one way when it said something else. And so the only reason I brought it up is because I noticed it, and I did look on, the master copy of CPM online, which was correct with the new policy. But my fear was if we adopt this, somebody years down the road is going to say, well, wait a minute, they adopted something different than what they meant. So that was the only reason that I brought it up in my email this stuff.
Okay, so,
Or after. You adopted what went to the board.
okay, so do we need to change? Do we need to
No,
change the motion
don't
to
think so.
say?
I think that's exactly why you have minutes. The minutes, and you've got a red line here that said, this is what we're proposing for change. If there's no red line or underscore on items that aren't being proposed for change, then they're not even being considered. I can pledge that I'll try to do a better job using a more current version. I really didn't expect this would become an issue because that issue has sailed and it's updated correctly on the website now. So, as I said, I'll try to use a more current version. I started working on this a few months ago before you adopted the smoking and vaping policy, but I'll be very clear and I'll go on record right now. We can even put it in the minutes. There is no change to the smoking and vaping policy per today's meeting.
Okay, so maybe we want to do that, Scott. Maybe Nancy can just put a note in there that says there's no change. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, are there any more comments? Those in favor signify by raising a hand. Unanimous. Okay. Tony, let me know if this doesn't work, okay? And if I don't answer you, let me know I didn't answer you. Okay? All right, member comments, right? Is that where I am? Member comments, these are limited comments to 2 minutes and speakers are asked to provide their name and GVR member number. It's time for comments, not for questions and answers. So if you have a comment, we'd appreciate if you want to come up to the mic and give us your comment. We won't have a lot of discussion though, okay? Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Kirk Hively with the president of the GVR Photography Club. And we've had some issues at the Desert Hills Audio Visual for the last 4 months. We've had some good help from the IT people. And I've worked through Kathy Edwards and she's put my comments on to Steve Kindred about our issues. But what I'd really like to say is that, this Desert Hills Auditorium and the audio-visual part is really important to us. We show 3 different events there every month that are open to all GVR members. We do a travelogue, a showtime, and then a speaker series. And we get between 40 to over 100 people that attend these events. And IT is our last event would have failed if IT guy hadn't shown up at 6 o'clock to help us with the switch. So there's something that needs to be fixed there. And we really wanted to let you guys know that I think personally, and a lot of our members, and I've talked to several other groups, the audio visual at Desert Hills, it should be second to, your secondary one for what's capable at West Center. There was talk I heard about replacing the screen and projector, which the projector was donated by the photography club. the screen with a 90-inch or 100-inch TV. Well, I looked up online and that's good for like 15 feet. So you wouldn't be able to see the TV from where you're sitting to where I'm at. So we've got a large membership. We've got good representation. I think we have a lot of fun at these 3 events. And basically, I just want to let you know that we think this is a very important facility for us. It fits our group there very well. We're typically under the 120 limit for the room. And it gets a lot of respect. We've had some disappointment for the last couple of months. Our VP, Todd Taylor, runs one of the shows, and he has volunteered for the last several months. We have got a secondary projector that he's brought in, and we've set that up ourselves sometimes, but that's not really what we should be doing.
Okay,
So, thank you.
thank you. IT, you got it? IT, you making notes?
Well, actually,
Scott?
yeah, I'll respond because we did deal with this. What we determined that it was actually one of the adapters that one of the members had brought. And so what we'd like to do is get away from having to rely on members' equipment so that we can be very clear and concise and use just GVR equipment, because then we're not having to kind of futz and make other things work. So that's part of the challenge, is just getting our equipment up to date so that we're not having to use members' equipment. At least that's how I understood it. The last time there was
I think it's a little different than that. Well, we're using GVR equipment, but the interface that we plug our laptops into wouldn't work.
it was the interface, I think, didn't the interface belong to the member?
No,
Okay.
no, that was the box back between, I think it
Okay.
happened when they took the stage away. It's the splitter, takes the video and the audio and splits them up.
Got it.
And they've said they've had to sometimes pull it out, turn it on and off, and sometimes they'll come back up.
Okay.
So we just want to let you know, please keep a good audio visual system
Sure.
going there. We'd really not like to see the screen replaced with a TV, because I just don't think that'd be adequate unless you want to put 4 TVs up there and multiplex them. But
All right.
Okay,
you.
Good to know.
Thank
Thank you. I
you.
appreciate that.
thank you. Staff now has heard the comments, and I'm sure that they'll look into it, whether IT or Scott. So thank you. Yes, sir.
Madam Chairman, Board, guests, my name is Todd Taylor. I am the Vice President of, excuse me, of the Photography Club. And one of my main responsibilities is setting up the audio visual at Desert Hills for our speaker series, Travelog, and Showtime. I work closely with Randy in IT and Arlene in the audio visual department and everything. According to Randy, the problem there is the switch. So it's the box where it takes the feed from whosever equipment it is and splits it to go to the speakers and go to the projector. And Randy has jury rigged something on the switch to make it work for now, but that's not a permanent solution. So we're just asking that either bring in a professional to take a look at it or have someone figure out how to replace the switch and make the thing. Everything, this just might be coincidental. Everything worked fine until they tore the stage out. I had no issues setting up any speaker on anybody's computers prior to that. Once the stage went out, and again, maybe it's coincidental, but now it's a problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Okay. Anybody else? The last 2 didn't give me their GVR numbers. All right. Great, thank you. Oh,
Well, I won't make that mistake. I have it right before me. 267469. Probably you want my name now too.
that'd help.
Oh, okay. John Graham, and with Dark Skies International. And we, in the work plan, you have 1.1.5, introduce newer technology to improve energy efficiency when there are opportunities. And then bullet point, conduct a campus-wide energy and dark skies audit. Ooh, that's wonderful. and compile recommendations to reduce GVR's energy consumption, wonderful, and light population contribution. What's light population? Oh, we're not supposed to, okay, I think you meant
Was
light.
a question? Did
I think you meant.
ask me a question?
Sorry, I didn't mean to ask a question, but I think it's supposed to be light pollution.
Wait a minute. Scott, do
Contribution.
you know what it is?
Pollution.
It's pollution.
Oh, it says light population. You know, it could be when I sent it to myself that.
That's okay. We'll
It could be
fix
that
it.
Google, when I sent it to myself, Google said, no, what's light pollution? There's no such thing. So anyway, what I really wanted to do was thank you for all that. And population or pollution, it's a great idea. Dark skies is not rocket science. It's real simple. I've been out 3 evenings with Tom Fisher, who is a wonderful employee that you have in facilities, absolutely superb. And we have done a dark skies audit. And it's preliminary and it's not official, but we did a lot of good work. And so you don't have to start over again. But I would like to continue, if you would, work with me and to work with Tom and complete the audit. It doesn't have to be something where you spend a lot of money. I'm free. I've been doing these kinds of evaluations for 25 years. I'm a GVR member. You have a lot of wonderful lighting here in places like Canoa Ranch. You have some very bad lighting here in places like Abrego South, where someone went through and replaced all the lighting with what we call glare bombs. And now that place is annoying the neighbors and annoying people who come to look at the place or to use it at night, and they're blinded by the light there. People are really attracted to places where the light is fully shielded and where it's amber, places like Canoa Ranch, and they're driven away from places where, just like when you're driving, when those lights are blinding you, you say, I don't think I can drive at night anymore. People feel that way about going out at night too. When they're looking at bright white lights, they say, I don't think I want to go there. So as I say, you have a lot of great lighting. You've done some good retrofits at places like Abrego North, and then some bad retrofits at a place like Abrego South. But in any case, it's not rocket science. Most of it's very easy to fix. It's not going to cost you a lot of money. Don't spend a lot of money on it. Just let Tom Fisher and me continue our work. Thank you.
Thank you. I just saw Scott write your name down, so watch out.
No, thank you for the correction. It definitely is supposed to say pollution, not population.
Does it say population?
It does say population.
okay.
Yes. Well, it did.
I apologize
It used
for
to
my,
say
for
that.
my
It
Google.
used to say it. Now it says pollution.
Yeah,
So-
that's AI. Watch out for that AI.
No, that was Scott. Scott typed pollution or population and didn't mean to. That was all me.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay,
So moved.
and seconded. So Bart moved, we adjourn, and Candy, no?
I just have one more thing I need to say
Oh.
that I forgot.
What? Is it on the agenda?
Yes, ma'am. It was in the early agenda and I forgot to say something. Sorry. I just want to thank 2 more people
Oh,
for
go
the
ahead.
forums. And that was Tony Zabicki, who was our monitor, our MC, and Miss Mary Lou back there, who helped set up things and run the timer. And also to invite the audience here to stay afterwards because the candidates are here in case you have any questions.
Will there be
Thank
food?
you.
That's right. That's right. We have 3 Kit Kats left.
Okay, I will accept a motion to
So
adjourn.
moved.
Bart, do I have a second? Jim? Bart moved to adjourn at 3:59 PM. Those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming and sharing your comments with us. And please do stay to meet the candidates.